dude. Back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 75. Here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing today, man?
Tuesday night, man. Back to talk fights with you. Happy to be here. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing well. So, guys, so much to discuss tonight. Here's what's on tap. We're going to start off with my opening question for Fight Geek. After that, we're going to dive into a recap and review of UFC Vegas 5, a.k.a. the Below the Belt Kicks fight card. After that, preview and picks for UFC Vegas 6, Lewis versus Olenek. After that, really quick news segment, love it or hate it, news outside the UFC. You'll see when it comes. And then after that, my favorite section, listener questions and more. So, Fight Geek, let me start off the episode with this question for you regarding Derek Brunson. Obviously, Derek Brunson had a huge upset victory over Edmen Shahbazyan several days ago, getting the knockout in the third round, 26 seconds into the third round. And I'm just curious, what do you think is Derek Brunson's ceiling, for the twilight of his career, for the rest of his career? Because he's had a lot of losses, but he's been a gatekeeper who's defended his gatekeeper status. He's stopped a lot of hype trains. He's got a very impressive schedule when you look at his wins and losses: Whitaker, Silva, Dan Kelly, Machida, Jacare, Israel Adesanya, Theodoro Heinisch, Shahbazyan. And I'm just curious, how far can he go? Can he become champ? Can he fight for a belt, or is that too far-fetched?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think over Brunson's career, we've seen the landscape of that division change quite a bit. It's obviously aged from the Weidman and the Rockhold era. And I think that he was, a little more middle of the pack then, and as the division has aged and kind of turned over a bit, he's actually moved closer to the front of that division. So do I think he's a guy who can win the title? Not with the guys at the very top of the heap. I would really favor Izzy and Costa versus him heavily if they were to fight. Obviously, Izzy's fought him already. So I think that would be tough for him to capture the belt. Do I think he could get up in that top 5 and sit there probably for the majority of next year and kind of ride out as a high-end middleweight? Yeah, I do think he can. So probably top 5 is his ceiling, but I think that's pretty impressive considering where he was once viewed.
Okay, so who do you think he should fight next? Because, before I was all hyped for Edmen versus Till, but Edmen, this was before, the fight, of course. I was completely wrong. We both were. We both thought Edmen was going to dominate Brunson. He was not ready for prime time. Edmen lost. Till seems like he's sidelined for a while. In my opinion, I think you make Derek Brunson versus Jack Hermansson. Am I crazy?
No, I think that fight makes a lot of sense. And if that fight, that really is the fight, considering I think Whitaker and Cannonier has been announced, correct?
Yes, it has. I believe that's UFC 254.
So I think that makes the next sense, ranking-wise, to have Hermansson versus Brunson. And if that can't work for some reason, I think Brunson versus Gastelum could be interesting just because of the name value and it being a main event type fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, let's move into it. The UFC Vegas 5 recap and review. Really quickly, we're going to go through this card fast, but I have to start with a very strange one, Fight Geek. I got to start with the first fight. Yeah, that's right. Chris Gutierrez versus Cody Durden. It ended with a unanimous draw, and I have to know how you scored this fight. A quick recap. Durden.
I scored it the same way as all 3 of the sane judges.
How?
28-28.
Okay, all right. I'm really glad you said that.
Because I weighed that first round a little more heavily than I did the other rounds. It's just the way it is.
You really thought that was a 10-8?
I know.
A 10-8? He didn't even inflict that much damage. But okay, that's fine.
But you're right. He didn't inflict that much damage. And then the fact that
I'm okay with that.
Gutierrez came with a couple flash knockdowns in the third, and I know that's your
If there's 2
case.
Knockdowns and the other guy doesn't get knocked down or doesn't get badly hurt or doesn't get nearly submitted, that's a 10-8.
But when he got knocked down, I don't believe he was in serious trouble of being finished in either time. Correct?
So what? It's a knockdown.
I'm just saying. Hey, where those judges are located and what they see and how they absorb the action is a variable in the sport. So I thought it was 28-28 the night of. I haven't gone back and watched it again, so I couldn't really sharpen up my scoring. All I know is that I scored at 28-28 and it was a unanimous draw. So
yeah, look, I know that almost everyone disagrees with me. I know that I'm in the huge minority, or tiny minority here. All I have to say to you, Fight Geek, and to everyone else who agrees with you, very respectfully, is that you guys are wrong. You guys are wrong. You're wrong.
I don't think it was the most dominant first round, but he was in full control the whole first round.
So 10-9 then. How is that a
Yeah. I feel you. The more I think about it, it wasn't an overly dominant round, even though he was in full control. It's not like he was, very close to the finish, unless I'm missing something in my memory. So, yeah, I could see why it was a tad controversial, but again, I scored it the same way as the judges, so I'm just going to roll with that.
All right. Let's move along. Anything in the prelims, or are we just going to go to the main card? Bobby Green defeating Lando Venata via unanimous decision. That was kind of a fun one.
Yeah, Bobby Green and Lando Venata are always in fun fights. It's basically went how I thought. Venata has all kinds of elite skills, very impressive prospect when he came in, but seems to be too willing to just get in a firefight each fight. I think a fight or two back, he actually implemented some wrestling and some clinch work and kind of showed a more well-rounded game. But when he's in there with a guy who strikes and talks, he just wants to all out, have a striking match. So I don't know. He's a little bit of an enigma at this point. I thought Bobby Green has looked good the last few performances, but he looked like Bobby Green to me. It's nothing we haven't seen before. But yeah, of course, a very fun fight.
Yep, totally agree. Got a feel for Lando Venata here. I just can't help but remember back when he first came to the UFC and just sort of how how high the hopes were for him. And I know that he's a great fighter, and I know he's really tough, but can't help but feel a little bad for him, frankly.
Yeah, he's a great fighter, fan favorite. I'm a big fan. It's just that, it's a little frustrating to watch a guy who really hasn't been able to adapt and change it up from what's been hurting him, which is just his willingness to brawl and take shots,
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. I love this next fight. Vicente Luque defeats Rude Boy Randy Brown via TKO, knees and punches, 4 minutes and 56 seconds of round number 2. What a knockout.
This was terrifying performance by Vicente Luque. Just marched him down, systematically took shots, gave shots, used the kick on the lead leg. It was one of those fights where I know Rude Boy has a ton of potential, people high on him, but it was one of those fights that just reminded you that there's levels to this, and Rude Boy hasn't quite fought the type of opponents that Vicente Luque has and fared pretty well against. So I think his ability to follow the game plan and super technical with the striking was, just ferocious, unbelievable performance. Couldn't be more impressed with Vicente.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't help but notice that our boy Gilbert Burns, friend of the program, was in his corner for that one. But Vicente called out Nate Diaz after. Now, obviously that fight is not happening. I even tweeted a little lame joke about it. Yeah, that
fight will never happen.
But admit it would be strangely awesome to watch.
It wouldn't be strangely awesome. It'd be 100% amazing. So, that'd be a great action fight. I think it's a fight that Nate would probably feel comfortable with, but I just don't think Luque has that kind of star power to draw Nate in. Nate's not in the portion of his career where he's jockeying for position within, a title run or something. Nate is a superstar. He's going to handpick who he fights, and Vicente Luque is not even on that list.
100%.
I think Robbie Lawler makes all the sense in the world, personally. You got a blood and guts fighter in Robbie Lawler. You got a blood and guts fighter in Vicente Luque. You put him in there. If Luque makes his name off of Robbie Lawler, now you got a guy you can promote a little more heavily who's in the top 10.
Well, hold on. Luque just rose today, by the way, to 10 from 11. And Robbie Lawler's 13, so he'd be fighting backwards.
Well, Robbie Lawler's be a big name to get on his resume, though. Former champion. That'd be a guy everybody would tune in to see. And if he would be able to have that kind of performance against Robbie, it would obviously elevate his status, even though, Randy Brown might be the tougher out at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited to see where Luque goes from here. I think regardless, he's one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC.
100% action-packed.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so moving on to the co-main event. Oh, boy, Fight Geek. Joanne Calderwood loses.
Winner fighter's going to stop taking these chances.
Well, are you referring to Tony Ferguson for 249? Because we both know that Dana White likely strong-armed him, and if he had turned that down, would have said, hey, guys, look, Tony doesn't want to fight. Oh, I'm going to give the rematch with McGregor now.
Sure, but what about the Joanna Calderwood fight? Yes.
So she lost to Jennifer Maia via armbar submission 4 minutes and 29 seconds into round one.
And she lost her title fight. Just a bad performance. I think Jennifer Maia looked very good. Obviously, the best shape we've seen her in. She's a ferocious striker, and then she also has the jiu-jitsu. So somewhat of a sleeper in that division. I think she's a little better than I had given her credit for initially.
Yeah, she's got absolutely nothing for Valentina, and I just hope that I hope Maia doesn't get hurt. I hope she doesn't get seriously hurt.
I actually think she's a more competitive matchup than JoJo Calderwood.
I don't know about that one. Maybe.
She just buzzsawed JoJo Calderwood like she was.
MMA math, Fight Geek?
She was the JV squad, but okay, sure.
MMA math, really, Fight Geek? Come on, you're above MMA math. We know.
No, I'm just saying, she looked pretty good, and for you to just dismiss it is a little strange. She looked good.
Yeah, she did. Women's flyweight is weird, but look, all the best to Jennifer Maia. It's been announced that Maia's next now for Valentina. When Valentina gets done from her spy work, her injury. Sorry, I meant her injury. She's not a spy.
Obviously, Valentina's
she's not a spy.
An enormous favorite, but I think that's an intriguing fight. She's got to fight someone, so Jennifer Maia's as good as anyone right now.
Every time someone goes in with Valentina, it just feels like it is, student against teacher.
I think Jennifer Maia will be much more competitive than Liz Carmouche or someone like that has been.
Well, remember, Liz Carmouche had a win over Valentina.
Yeah, 20 years ago in an exhibition in someone's garage. Nobody cares.
I mean, I agree. Okay. All right. Moving on to the main event. Derek Brunson with the huge upset TKO via ground and pound, 26 seconds into round number 3, defeats the previously undefeated Edmund Shabazian.
So my question here is why was this fight only a 3-round main event? Was it because Edmund knew his cardio was horrible and his team pushed for it?
I have heard, okay, so this is the truth. I have heard differing reports. I believe that both fighters' camps have accused the other one of not making it 5 rounds, which by the way makes me conclude that they both kind of were fine with it being 3, frankly.
No, they might have been fine with it being 3, but the fact that he was literally gassed by the end of the second round, I think, is a
end of the second. You mean end of the first?
Yeah, I mean, he still had a little bit, but at the end of the second, he was unable to even, defend himself, I mean, it's one thing to be gassed and, finding a way. It's another thing to be gassed and not able to defend yourself.
Yeah, do you think that Herb Dean was in the, not to bring up Herb Dean again, but, obviously people are talking about it. It looked like Edmund was knocked out at the end of the second. I definitely think he went out. I mean, he did go out. I saw it. He definitely lost consciousness for a moment and then was brought back. And to Edmund's credit, he manned up. He toughed it out. He he didn't want to go back out there. He
made it to his corner, and he did not want to go back out there.
He was terrified. You could see it. You could see it in his eyes.
I don't know if he was terrified, but again, he was to that point of exhaustion where I don't believe he felt like he could protect himself. So it was inevitable that he would be finished, and he was eventually finished.
Okay, but let me quickly clarify. That's exactly what I mean by terrified. I don't mean he's some wussy, scared guy. Okay, that's not what I mean. I mean, no, that's what I mean.
It was inevitable that he would be finished. I think, at the
and
end
it's
of
a
that
very
scary.
Round. It's a scary feeling to be gassed.
And to me, that's the look he had in his eyes. Like, I know physically I can't make it through this next round, but I have to at least try. And that's. At 22 years old, I mean, I feel like the corner's got to be able to look into their guy's eye and understand where he's at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and on that note,
because the finish wasn't overly brutal, but what does it do to an undefeated fighter's confidence to take a loss like that? I mean, he was dragged into deep waters and literally drowned.
well, and on that note, on that note, Vikey, do you think? I mean, I think he's got to leave, Glendale Fight Club. I mean, he's got to go to a real gym. Real
no,
talk.
I don't know if he has to leave.
He needs a real gym. Ronda, I mean, I think that if we've learned anything from Glendale, that's not a real gym. That's just...
See, I disagree. It may not be the best gym in the world, but I think they have enough of a track record to say that they're not atrocious. I mean, he's put multiple fighters in the UFC, so...
I mean, the coach is a striking expert.
No, I get it. I mean, Edmund Shabazian's a pretty damn good striker, to be honest.
But I'm saying I think that that's just his talent naturally. Because look at Ronda Rousey's striking, and she was with Edmund, the coach.
Well, they've had other guys too, other fighters that have come from that gym.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
You think he should stay there? He's better there than at AKA or American Top Team.
Obviously not. Of course, there you go with your extremes. I just said that I don't think that like they're not UFC worthy or whatever like some people think. They've obviously produced some talent, elevated some talent. Edmund Shabazian didn't come out the womb 11-0. He was crafted and built up by a team in the UFC. They've beaten name fighters already. I mean, Brad Tavares is not a slouch. He's not a superstar, but I mean,
he's becoming a bit of a slouch, ironically, lately. But yeah, I hear you.
Well, he's on the back end of his career.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Come on,
I'm just, of course.
I'm just saying. Again, MMA views everything in a vacuum. On Friday, the guy's the next undefeated superstar, 22-year-old champ, and now on Tuesday he should leave his team and start over. I think that's a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so Derek Brunson really fast, and then we got to move on to the next card. Derek Brunson, I said earlier Jack Hermanson should be next for him. Do you agree with that?
Jack Hermanson, Kelvin Gastelum. I know Till's going to be out for a while, but those names in that vicinity, I know I always bring up Marvin Vettori, but that's a name around that's floating. I mean, it's not the deepest division in the UFC, so there's only really a handful of names at this point. So we'll see. Maybe the winner of that Chris Weidman fight this weekend. Is it against Akhmedov?
Yep, we're about to get to it, so I don't even want you to talk much about it.
That's going to be a good one. The winner of that fight will be placed somewhere in that, I would imagine, like 6 to 10 range, 7 to 10 range. So, yeah, there'll be some shaking up of that division. But, yeah, he's up there.
All right. Are we ready to move on to our preview and picks for UFC Vegas 6?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Lewis versus Olenek, folks. UFC Vegas 6. They got to get some new names here. The names are getting bad. But let's start off with the main card. First fight on the main card, Nasrat Haqparast versus the undefeated Alex Munoz, 6-0 from Texas.
Yeah, I think it's a little too much for Munoz this early. I'm going to go with Haqparast. He's looked good. Obviously had a little bit of a setback in his last fight, I believe. But I've been high on him so far, so I'm actually taking him here.
Yeah, it's so crazy that Haqparast isn't Kelvin Gastelum.
Like, literally, they're just not the same.
It's crazy that they're not like the same organism. Not brothers, just the same.
They were both cloned 26 years ago.
It literally looks like it. But, okay, moving on. Beneil Dariush versus Scott Holtzman. And really quick side note, sort of connected to Beneil. I had forgotten how ridiculously incredible his last fight was until recently.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. You talking about Drakkar Klose?
Yes.
Yeah, great action fight. Great fight.
I mean, unreal comeback. Unreal. I had forgotten.
Beneil Dariush is one of the more underrated guys,
He really is. And, so what are your thoughts on this fun one? I mean, Scott Holtzman.
Oh, yeah, I think this is going to be a great fight. Obviously, Scott Holtzman is a big, brooding, strong, forward-moving wrestler type, good striking. Beneil Dariush is very well-rounded, obviously a good striker, but good with his jiu-jitsu as well. So lots of ways this fight can go. But with that said, I'm actually going to take Beneil Dariush via split decision. I think it'll be a close back and forth fight.
I got Beneil Dariush via knockout in the third.
Wow. Okay, that'd be interesting.
Yep. Moving on. Right. Yana Kunitskaya versus Julia Stodiarenko.
Taking Yana Kunitskaya in this one.
As am I. Moving on. Darren Stewart versus Maki Pitolo.
Going with Maki Pitolo here. Was super impressed with his debut. Really looking forward to what he can do. Obviously, Darren Stewart has some weapons, but I think Pitolo's a little more well-rounded.
Interesting. Disagree with you. Taking Darren Stewart by second round TKO.
But you're wrong.
Oh wow, that was aggressive. Okay. All right. You better make sure Maki Pitolo wins now. You really said that quite surely. All right.
Maki Pitolo. He's a burgeoning fan favorite.
Fine.
Heard it here.
Okay, well, Darren Stewart's not exactly some bum. But,
no, he's not. He's good.
Yeah. All right. Co-main event. Chris Weidman versus Omari Akhmedov.
Yeah, this is one of those fights that just hits you, and you see the matchup, and you just cannot believe this is going to go well for Chris Weidman after the last few years. Was always a big Chris Weidman fan, but until I see him put it all together, it's just hard for me to go and pick him in a fight, especially when he's going up against someone like Akhmedov, who is just rock solid, going to be hard to knock out, big physical guy. So I'm taking Akhmedov via, I hate to say it, but third round TKO.
Oh, geez. Well, you've got Akhmedov winning, huh? That's I'm surprised that you're doing that. That's so disrespectful. But I do too. I think Weidman's gonna lose. I'm so sorry, guys.
How's it disrespectful?
Well, I think that
when is the last time Chris Weidman looked good? When he beat Lyoto Machida 5 years
Kelvin
ago?
Gastelum.
Gastelum almost knocked him out at the end of the first round. Well, he did not look good in that fight.
Yeah, but his dad said, "That's still my boy," at the end.
Yeah, well, he still almost got lit up at the end of that first round. I mean, it has been a long time since Chris Weidman has looked like
I
Chris
know.
Weidman.
I just like.
So
Chris
until I see it again, I can't bank on it.
Yeah,
especially against a guy like Akhmedov, who is like,
yeah,
I mean, just a tank of a man. It's going to be a tough out for Weidman, but if he could figure out a way, I mean, there may be some exciting fights for him moving forward too.
Definitely, and I got Akhmedov by second round stoppage, TKO actually. So we'll see. But moving on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, moving on to the main event here, Fight Geek. Derek, the Black Beast Lewis versus Alexei Olenek. You've been making most of the picks first here, so let me just make mine first and foremost, because I think it might be a little controversial, okay? I got Alexei Olenek by first round submission.
I mean, it's definitely possible.
Hey, go big or go home. Go big or go home,
I'm
right?
actually going to go with the Black Beast here. I think just Alexei Olenek, he has a willingness to exchange shots in the first round. He did it with Overeem. He's done it with other big strikers. And I just think that'll be a big mistake versus Derek Lewis. Also, and I could be wrong, but from what I've seen, Derek Lewis looks to be in very good shape, much more trim than he's been in the past. So maybe his back isn't as much of an issue as it has been in the past, and we may get a great version of him. So with that being said, I just think he'll land too many heavy shots early, and I'm taking Derek Lewis by first round knockout.
Ooh, I love it. Oh, we've got differing first round stoppages going for the main event, and this should be fun. Alexei's a big underdog, so I know I'm taking a chance here, but we'll see.
But he's got like 80 career fights, right? And then obviously he has a big submission advantage if it does go to the ground. So we'll see.
All right. Are we ready to move along now?
Let's do it.
All right, guys, we are jumping into a new segment. It's been a while since I've introduced a new segment. This is Outside the UFC Love It or Hate It, and this is how it works. I am going to run passable news, news stories that are coming up by Fight Geek. News and rumors in the news cycle. Ask him if he loves it or hate it, and then I'm gonna give my take. So, love it or hate it. Here we go, Fikey. Love it or hate it if...
Hate it. Oh, sorry.
You just had to...
I just thought you meant the whole segment. Sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead.
wow. Oh, wow, guys. The disrespect. Now I feel like we shouldn't do it.
No, we're doing it.
All right.
Go ahead.
Love it or... You smartass. Love it or hate it if Paige Van Zandt signs with bare knuckle fighting.
Hate it. Makes no sense, especially for someone who is going to make more of her money on Instagram than in the ring.
The sort of masochist in me loves it. I'm going to say love it. I think it's entertaining. I think that she is definitely a big enough star to have a lot of people tune in.
I think what they saw was that if Beck Rollins can go over there and become like the belt holder and get a little marketing dollars behind her, then Paige Van Zandt can do that times 10. So that's probably the thought process, in my opinion.
Oh, it's a brilliant move from them. If I'm bare knuckle fighting, I'm offering them everything. I'm offering Paige everything.
What can bare knuckle offer, though? That's kind of the question.
Well, I think we're about to find out,
Yeah.
right?
The only thing bare knuckle did for Beck Rollins was get her an OnlyFans account. So
yeah, oh geez, and she did not need that. Okay, moving on. Love it or hate it. Bellator 243, the second post-COVID event, is headlined by Chandler versus Henderson 2. What do you think?
The card, I love it. There's some good names on there, some interesting fights. I think Valerie Laredo's on there. Adam Boric is on there. Obviously, the rematch with Chandler and Henderson. So, yeah, I love it.
People on the West Coast cannot see it live unless they're paying for DAZN.
Yeah, well, pay for DAZN.
They say it's on Paramount Network, but it is, but only 3 hours later.
I hate that, but I actually like the fight card. I think it's an interesting fight card. So, yeah, love it.
Are you going to be watching it live, Fight Geek?
On Friday, I think I will. Because it's for me. I like...
So you're going to pay for DAZN? You're paying for DAZN right now?
I am.
Oh, all right. Okay. Look at
Yeah,
Mr. Moneybags, Fight Geek.
Us big boys pay for our subscriptions, Phil.
Oh. Ouch. I actually just canceled my Fight Pass.
I even pay for my own pay-per-views, believe it or not.
Oh, that makes 2 of us. That makes 2 of us there. Okay. All right. So, final love it or hate it section question. Cody Garbrandt is highly rumored to be Figgy's first title defense at 125. Do you love it or hate it, Fight Geek?
This is no-brainer. I absolutely hate it.
I knew you would.
Hasn't proven himself in that weight class. And, the one knock on him is that he's chinny, and the one thing that you expose by cutting weight is your chin. So, sounds like a losing proposition in my opinion, but if you're going to get knocked out, I guess do it in a title fight, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to be weird, and I'm going to say that I love it. I know you're a Moreno fan. I know this is going to get a lot of hardcores mad at me, but guys, Figgy needs some push. He needs to get over on somebody. Cody Garbrandt is one of those people that can really elevate Figgy. So before he starts his defenses against all of the 125ers, let him knock out Cody Garbrandt, get that big W. And if Cody wins, holy crap, what a win for him. And now he's a double champ. But anyways, I think Figgy got that easy. And I kind of like the fight, to be honest. I'm kind of guilty saying that, but I like it.
Well, I guess we'll have to see how Cody looks at 125. Literally have never seen it before. So just like with TJ, it's like, how are you going to bank on anything?
Right. Exactly. All right, folks. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will then be back with listener questions and more. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision Podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split Podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.TotalAggressionClothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 75, here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek, and it is now time for my favorite section of all, Listener Questions!
let's get to them.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so the first question comes from Zanbando at Zanbando99. He says, this is a great one. If you were given a choice and you could only choose one to continue, would it be Dana White's Tuesday Night Contenders or The Ultimate Fighter? #AskSplitPod. Fight Geek?
For me at this point, it would definitely be the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series. I think we've seen recently.
That's the cool hipster answer. I knew you.
Well, it's been able to produce potential superstars. I mean, Sean O'Malley's from there. Off the top of my head, Rick comes to mind.
Ever heard of Michael Bisping?
Well, yeah. I mean, what was that, 20 years ago? I mean, we're talking today, Phil. Not
Ryan Hall. But no one wants to fight Ryan Hall. No one wants to fight Ryan Hall.
Important? I mean, are we talking about which one has a better legacy, a more important legacy, or are we talking about tonight on Tuesday, which one would I rather tune into?
Well, obviously you're going to prefer Tuesday Night Contenders. You're going to tune in on a Tuesday. You're going to prefer it tonight.
My point is I like that rundown a little bit better. I don't need to see guys hanging out in their bunks and in their dorm rooms anymore. That doesn't do much for me. You know, I don't even think the coaches generally end up fighting anymore, do they?
Not really.
Yeah, so I mean, there's not really
Sometimes.
Rivals like Shamrock and Tito and people like that from back in the day that made it really fun. Rampage and Rashad. Yeah, so I don't really I could do without Ultimate Fighter, but I think that Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series is a viable talent-producing platform today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, joking aside, I think that's very fair. Is Tuesday Night Contenders, attracting the better talent right now? Yeah, I think absolutely. I don't know. I don't even know that that's up for discussion. I don't know if you caught the fights tonight, but there was actually a Serbian undefeated fighter named Uros
Yeah, don't
Medic.
tell me because I'm watching them after this recording. I'm gonna go
all right, well, everyone.
But I know. I've already seen on Twitter. But yeah, I'm gonna go watch all the action back after this.
Okay, well, cover your ears for a second. So everyone who did watch, Uros Medic looked incredible with his first round stoppage, incredible body kicks, and luckily he did get the contract. So we're going to see Medic in the UFC. I can't wait. He's gonna be a factor in that division. Okay.
So now that you've named that guy, can you name one person off the last season of the Ultimate Fighter?
Sugar Sean.
No. One person off the last season of the Ultimate Fighter.
What was the last one again? It's been so long, hasn't it?
Well, this is my question. You have a guy.
I don't even remember the last. You have to remind me which one it was. I know I've seen it. What was the last tough? Okay, fine. Good point.
When you can identify.
All right. I prefer Contenders. I prefer the Contender Series, Zan.
Right.
He proved me wrong. Okay, fine. You win. Okay. All right.
All right.
You happy
Keep it
now?
moving.
Okay, all right. Do you have keep it moving? Okay. This is from at the _ MMA _ King. He says #AskSplitPod. What age do you think it's best for fighters to retire? And my answer would be that it really depends. Miles mean more than age, right? How many fights have you been in? How hard have you been sparring? What's your chin like? How many times have you been knocked out? I think that it's really, you look at someone like DC, he is still at the very top, at least in the top 3 or top 2 of the heavyweight division, well into his 40s, whereas a lot of fighters who have a lot of miles, someone like Izzy Adesanya, I'd be shocked if he's still fighting when he's 41.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree. There is no universal black or white on this. Each fighter's different. Lots of guys come to mind, but I actually just listened to an interview with Mike Tyson, and he was talking about this. And they were saying, "Oh, Mike, you're 53 and you're coming back, and the wear and tear and yada yada." And he basically made the point that I think he has 30 plus first round knockouts. I mean, even though he's 53, for the majority of his career, he wasn't taking damage. He took a couple losses, but he wasn't a guy who fought late into his career and went deep into rounds and took a lot of thudding damage on the head. So he may be fresher later on, even though he's really old based on the action throughout his career. So I really think it just depends,
Yep. Again, I have to agree with that. I think that everyone's different, and again, it's more about the miles that you put on the bike than the age of the bike itself. In
Right.
particular, when it comes to
And what
fighting.
you're trying to do as a fighter, like, are you trying to present yourself as an elite fighter throughout your career? Or are you just cashing checks and doing it because you love it? So it just depends on where you're at. Again, another variable. So hard to say.
Yep. Okay, moving on. We've got a awesome question from Jalen Ware. That's at strive2b_ great. Love Jalen. Always brings the fire questions, and tonight is no different. He says, I've always liked watching Bobby Green. Very skilled. Realistically, how high is his ceiling, and should he shoot for a top 10 to 15 opponent? Hashtag AskSplitPod.
Yeah, I'm a Bobby Green fan also. Fun guy to watch, slick, good striker, good personality, lots of swag. Um, I think that the things that, you know, ail him are kind of, focus and discipline and stuff like that. He likes to get loose in there. He fights with his hands down, takes a lot of chances and a lot of risks, more of a showman than a guy who's really like a diligent, rankings climber. So, I don't know if he's a guy who's going to climb into the top 10 and win fights. I see Bobby Green as a fun action style gatekeeper, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree. But in Bobby's defense, Fight Geek, if he is a fun gatekeeper, doesn't he at least deserve that chance to?
Sure, and I'm not saying you can't give him a guy who's ranked 14 or 13. I actually think him coming off last victory, I'd love to see him in there with Ally Quinta.
Ooh, that'd be really fun.
Yeah, it'd be like who deserves to stay in the top 15, So I think he'd be fun versus guys like that, versus a Beneil Dariush, versus guys in that
I was just
Hernandez.
gonna call for Beneil Dariush versus Scott Holtzman winner faces him.
Exactly,
What about that?
something like that. But I don't see Bobby Green getting into the top 10 and competing with Hooker and Felder.
Well, that's fine, but that wasn't the question. It was just
no, I know. I'm just kind of giving you where I see him. I see him as a guy who's a fun guy who can fight fringe top 15 guys and put on exciting fights.
Absolutely. Totally agree there. And I would like to see him, by the way, final answer, face the winner of Beneil Dariush versus Scott Holtzman, myself. Okay, moving on. Our main man, Split Podcast OG, Jacob Powers, at Jacob Powers2, says, hashtag AskSplitPod. Who do you guys think will be lightweight champion by the end of 2021? Ooh, good question, Jacob. Good question. This is, of course, going with the expectation, as Khabib has said, that he'll be fighting Gaethje, and if he beats Gaethje, then he is fighting GSP, and then he is done. He's getting to 30-0 in April of next year, according to his plans, assuming everything goes according to plan, and then he is done.
With that being said, I'll say Justin Gaethje.
Oh, wow. Fascinating. Now, how do you see that going down by the end of 2021? Let's just say Khabib beats
Well, first
Gaethje.
of all, people are going to call me crazy, but I'm leaning towards Justin Gaethje taking out Khabib. So that's what I see it.
You are crazy.
Yeah. But even if that doesn't happen, let's say that Khabib does fight GSP down the road. That fight is basically a retirement fight for Khabib. Obviously, GSP, win or lose, is going to retire. I don't see him defending in the lightweight division. So towards the end of 2021, either scenario leads to a vacant lightweight title fight, and I would see Justin Gaethje versus, one of the usual suspect there. Justin Gaethje versus Conor McGregor, Justin Gaethje versus, a Tony Ferguson rematch, maybe Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier, something like that towards the end of the year for a vacant belt if Khabib really retires, like he says.
Yeah, so I thought about this question. It's a great question, by the way. Great question, Jacob. And here is my answer. I believe that Tony Ferguson and Dustin Poirier are going to fight. I believe they're headed for a showdown. Tony said he wanted Dustin or Conor. Obviously, we know Conor is not fighting Tony. Don't need to get into the reasons why. There's too many. Tony, so that just means Tony versus Dustin is next. You know that Dustin's down. He's certainly not afraid to fight anyone. So it's going to be my answer is the winner of Poirier versus Tony Ferguson. I believe will become the
but
champ.
I think Justin Gaethje beats both of those guys right now.
Be that as it may, I don't think that the timeline allows Justin to become champ in 2021. And I could be wrong.
What do you mean? He's going to fight in the fall right now. Let's say
this is assuming he loses. I'm definitely assuming he loses.
If you assume he's losing, let's say he comes back in the first quarter of next year or early summer, fights again, wins, he's still up there above Tony. He just, whitewashed Tony. Dustin Poirier.
He did not whitewash him. Tony almost stopped him in the second with that knockdown.
Well, you can say whatever you want. He beat Tony pillar to pole from second round on. So,
damn it! All right, what? Sorry if I alerted everyone.
Sorry if I struck a chord there. But
all right. I changed my answer. It's Justin Gaethje. Honestly, let's just move on. I do not like when you win.
Man, I am just winning all night tonight.
It's a first time, so you'd better record it all and save it on your phone because that won't happen again. But all right, Gaethje.
I'll promote it in extra time.
Gaethje, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Gaethje.
Unless Tony gets his revenge. All right, okay. All right, moving on. This is from @DeanDog3, one of our original gangsters. Dean R, happy birthday, by the way. It's just his birthday. In your opinion, is Tony rushing back too soon after the fight with Justin, or is this what he needs? Always, he's #AskSplitPod.
I don't think it is really.
Well, it's not scheduled yet, is it?
Yeah. No, it's not scheduled yet, but it's not rushing either. I mean, he's going to have a full 4 or 5 months in between, right?
Yeah, I know. I think he needed to take time, and that's what he did.
Prior to Conor and Khabib, era, fighters used to fight 3 and 4 times a year, believe it or not.
You just said during the Conor Khabib era?
You're
saying Khabib fights 3 or 4 times a year?
No, I'm saying prior to the Conor and Khabib era, fighters used to fight 3 or 4 times a year, so every 3 months isn't really that quick of a turnaround. It's just that these guys only fight once a year, so it seems like a quick turnaround when guys are staying regular on schedule. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there is a lot of truth to that, specifically in the lightweight division, but in defense of Khabib and Conor really fast, because I've heard the narrative. Jose Aldo barely fought. I mean, we want to talk about fighters that, champs didn't fight much. Jose Aldo.
Great point, Phil. What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
What do you mean? What you just said, the champs used to defend all the time.
Jose Aldo, what do you defend 7 or 8, 9 times?
In about 7 or 8 or 9 years, yeah.
No, that's not true.
No.
But fair point. Yes, you're right. Aldo did not defend all that much. All I'm saying is fighting every 4 or 5 months is not a quick turnaround.
No, I agree. I totally agree with you, and I think it's an appropriate fight. So your final answer on who will be lightweight champion by end of 2021 is Justin Gaethje, which I annoyingly now do agree with, although I hope it's not the case. Team Ferguson forever. All right, moving on. Kev @KevC918. Where does the heavyweight division go if DC and Stipe both retire after 252? Clearly, Ngannou will fight for the title, but the other top contender, Blades, has lost to Francis twice. So, would it be Francis versus the winner of Lewis versus Oleinik? Thanks, and keep up the great work. Thank you, Kev. You are a split decision OG. You're the man. Thank you, bro, for the awesome stuff. Awesome questions. It's a great one. Fight Geek. Who fights Ngannou?
I mean, heavyweight is such a wasteland after the top 3. So, I mean...
Oh, don't be so mean. Curtis Blades is fine.
No, he's good, but
after the top 4, it's a wasteland, is what you meant.
He has the 2 losses to Ngannou, which cause all kinds of problems with matchmaking. I mean, it's just impossible to say where we'll be then. My thinking is if both guys retire, the UFC will be so desperate to jumpstart that division and give Francis a relevant opponent, they're going to have to overpay for John Jones to go to heavyweight and just pray that can happen, because I can't think of a real intriguing heavyweight fight after DC and Stipe are gone. Can you?
Well, I think a lot of people are floating, and you're going to laugh, Lewis Ngannou too, if Lewis beats
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously that fight can be booked again, and I'm sure it'll be better.
I'm
than the
sure it won't look
prior
like
one.
the first. I know the jokes.
Well, of course, but it's not a title-worthy fight right now, is it? I mean, that's not something that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. My question in this.
I mean, Ngannou versus Jones, I'm sure from a marketing standpoint is how they would like to usher in the next era of heavyweight.
Okay, well you said earlier that you don't like talking about make-believe fights that will never happen. Talk about a make-believe fight that will never happen. Let's not talk about Jones Ngannou. My God.
But what I'm saying from the UFC standpoint, that's obviously what would be ideal for them. True or no?
Yeah, of course. Jones won't take that fight he wouldn't take that fight for all the money in the world. Let's just be honest here.
Well, apparently he'll take that fight for $15 million.
That's what he says. I'd love to call that bluff. Oh boy.
You got a lot of work to do to get that 15 mil.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to come from his pay-per-view buys. That's for sure.
All right.
They walked him through the numbers. He's such
dangerously close to getting John Jones sidetracked. Let's keep it moving.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay. So moving
that
on.
That sinister laugh kind of let me know which way you were headed.
I know. Okay, Eduardo at Landa Crew. Eduardo, my man, OG. Do you think Cain Velasquez's inactivity has hurt his legacy? And do both DC and Stipe rank higher than him on the list of greatest heavyweights of all time? #AskSplitPod. That's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So let me take this one. When it comes to legacy, I think there's two different ways to think of your legacy. Obviously, your resume on paper, who you beat, your title reign, your records, and then who for one night was the all-time best in their prime. So do you get what I'm saying here, the two different distinctions?
Yeah.
So Cain Velasquez's legacy on paper, his resume, is not quite what Stipe or DC's is, in my opinion. But in Cain's absolute apex, his prime, the second Dos Santos fight, I do think he was the best UFC heavyweight of all time. I think he would have beat anyone that night on the planet in any era.
Yeah, sure. But
so yeah, there's two parts of the legacy. Do I think?
Well, Gracie would have beaten anyone on the planet for all of UFC 1.
No, that's not true because you're not understanding.
There were no weight classes. What do you mean? He did.
Yeah, but you couldn't put him in modern MMA. He'd lose right away. We saw that. Well,
of course he would, but that doesn't have anything to do with it.
Well, what I'm saying is if you put the prime Cain in the heavyweight division today, I think he'd beat a prime Stipe and a prime DC.
I don't know about that, man.
This is my opinion. I'm answering the question.
No, you can't have a different opinion than me. You know that. That's not how this show works. That is not how this show works. Don't you sass me.
All right, I take it back.
Why am I in such a weird mood tonight? Not even drunk.
It's already been a long week and it's only Tuesday.
I don't know
how that's possible, but
preach.
So yeah, I don't even know what the question is, but obviously the inactivity hurt Cain, but I still think Cain has a case as the greatest heavyweight of all time in the UFC. I think that things move so quickly people forget, but it is at his apex. Cain was,
Oh, yeah. No, you don't need to tell me.
Cain was more terrifying than Stipe has ever been in his apex, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. No, and that's fair. Cain was the man I'll never forget.
Cain was more terrifying than DC has ever been, in my opinion.
Well, let's not go crazy there. But, okay, I'll never forget the first UFC on Fox event. I saw that live at a very crowded bar in Santa Monica, California, when I first moved there. And everyone was so pumped. It was Junior Dos Santos versus Cain Velasquez 1, if I remember. I'll never forget this. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, UFC. And, there were a lot of casuals who didn't know the sport well. And then the fight starts, and it's over in literally 10 seconds. Junior Dos Santos knocks him out in 10 seconds. And everyone was so pissed. And It's just a very big memory. It's a very memorable moment.
Yeah, he had some tough losses, fought injured a lot. I think in retrospect we found out that he was pretty injured in that fight, and then he came back and absolutely destroyed and derailed Dos Santos' career for a while. So,
the third fight was a masterpiece.
Well, Kane's second and third fight versus Dos Santos is just absolutely terrifying. The pace, the ferocity, it's crazy.
Okay, wait, we got to answer Eduardo's question, though. So, do you list him higher or not than DC and Stipe? My short answer, Fight Geek, is no. You do not.
Well, you can't list his resume higher than either guy's, but
you can't.
Again,
you just can't do it.
In a one-night tournament with all men being at their best, I think I would take Kane to beat both of them.
Honestly, that's fair.
So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, that's fair. I still think that, at the end of the day, no matter who wins Stipe versus DC, they're definitely going to finish as the 1 and the 2.
It's kind of like and this is probably go over your head, but the Emmitt Smith or the Barry Sanders debate.
Yeah, I don't like, I don't like baseball.
On paper, Emmitt Smith's the best running back, but anybody who saw Barry Sanders play knows that he was the better running back, even though the stats aren't there. So
that was a joke. I said I don't like baseball, and then you were talking about football. That was just a prank.
Yeah, football is the brown one.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Okay, moving on. So next listener question, and this is from MMA Egypt. That's at MMA EEJIT, a rising star of MMA Twitter who's hilarious. So give him a follow for sure, guys. Seriously. Should all title fights be in a normal-sized octagon? The pandemic has meant we have seen both sizes used for titles in the last few months, Apex plus Fight Island. Not sure how I feel about it, but it's safe to say a smaller-sized cage would favor upcoming contenders such as Costa and DC.
Yeah, I kind of like the variants. I don't think they should all be in the same one because I think it makes for additional storylines. So let's say for some reason Costa goes out and knocks Izzy out in a highlight reel fashion in the second round after marching him down, and then they're able to build a rematch in a bigger cage. Oh, Adesanya have the room to move and use his footwork and things like that. So I think the added variable is kind of interesting in my opinion.
Yeah, that's not a bad point. I think just playing devil's advocate here, and I'm obviously, as you guys know, a diehard DC fan, so this DC-Stipe 3 fight, I'm emotionally compromised. But playing devil's advocate on Stipe's side here, Stipe argued, and he did not make a big fuss, by the way. He did not make a big fuss, but his team did mention that they, requested that the octagon be larger. And that was declined, and now Stipe's saying it doesn't matter, no big deal. So credit to Stipe. He's not making any excuses at all.
And I don't think,
But as champion, is there an argument, Fight Geek? As champion, he should be, his request should be respected. He's the champ.
Well, that's what I mean. There's nothing wrong with requesting something, but it's been denied based on the fact that we're in a global pandemic and we don't have the accessibility to the normal arenas we usually use. He's going to be fighting in a smaller ring. I think we can all wrap our heads around that, or a smaller octagon. I just think in life you adjust, and in the UFC you're going to have to adjust sometimes, and you may have to adjust to a bigger or a smaller cage, and this sport is dependent on talking points and picking a side, and I just think it's amplified with the size variation in the cage.
Yeah,
so I'm on board with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just for the record, this, Fight Geek. There's no fighter that I am a bigger stan of, more emotionally compromised for than Daniel Cormier. But even me, in my emotionally compromised state, I am not at all convinced that the smaller cage definitely heavily favors DC. I get it. He's a grappler.
Well, I was just reading some statistics, and statistically, there's no difference in the action in the large and the small.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
So it's more of a perception than anything, I think.
Right, because you could counter, by the way, that strikers can cut off corners more easily. You know what I mean?
Well, and then then you don't have as much space to kind of
to get out of
use your lateral movement if you're a very mobile fighter. So again, more variables, more stuff to talk about. If a fighter were to lose, and then the fight would look different in a different size cage, I think that's a positive overall.
Yeah, I really don't disagree. Chael Sonnen said on his show the other week that he had fought in different sized cages for much of his career, hadn't even noticed the difference until Matt Mitrione complained about it in a fight with Roy Nelson. So I thought that was interesting. Chael didn't even notice.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, Chael came up wrestling with no octagon, so I mean, he's probably just.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving on to another OG of the show. We appreciate you so much, Glitch. That's at MMA Port. Guys, give Glitch a follow. He knows what's up. He says, hashtag AskSplitPod. Is the fight between Stipe and DC for heavyweight supremacy, or is Stipe already the heavyweight GOAT? And we kind of touched on this, but I think it's absolutely for the GOAT title.
Yeah, no matter what, whoever wins this fight will be considered as the heavyweight GOAT moving forward until the next guy. So.
And second place goes to the loser, or is Fedor trying to sneak his way in there?
Well, I mean, again, this is so.
I think loser gets second. I think loser gets second.
Cain Velasquez, Fedor in their primes. Would they have beat these guys in their primes? It's hard to say. As far as UFC heavyweights go, whoever wins this fight will have the best resume. So, it's hard to say who would beat who in their absolute best. I still think that, Fedor would fare very well versus these guys if they were all in their primes. So it's basically impossible to say.
Yeah, very fair. I think it's very fair. Okay, and then second to last question, and then we've got a fun audio question. But this one from the godfather of MMA Twitter. He's got a podcast, Combat Corner. This is at Cyrus King. Love Cyrus. He says, with Derek Brunson having dominated Edmund Shabazian, do you think the UFC rushed Edmund too quickly?
Yeah, it's a tough one, but no, I don't. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, his performance versus guys like Brad Tavares led you to believe that the next logical step is Derek Brunson. It's not like he was going from Brad Tavares to Israel Adesanya. This was an incremental step, so I don't think it was too much. I think he failed the test, but he can learn from this and come back. I don't think that it was too much too fast. It was just a bad performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a concern about his gas tank? Because I thought, personally, Fight Geek, that he looked solid. Not great, but solid for one round. And then even this start of the second, I thought he looked exhausted.
Yeah. Well, again, he's 22, so I'm sure he doesn't have everything figured out when it comes to the fight game.
And as you know, and as we both know, by the way, it's worth pointing out, nerves, nothing tires you out more than nerves. If you have nerves, that tires you out so bad.
And as an undefeated guy going through some adversity and, all kinds of stuff.
Headlining, his first fight night.
Exactly. So there was a lot that goes into it. What's going to be important to see is if he can take these big glaring, negatives like the gas tank and work on them and come back and start to build himself into a more well-rounded fighter so that the next time he's on one of those kind of fights where it's like to break through, he has more answers than he had the first time. And at 22, I think that's okay, and I think he probably will find those answers. I don't think he's going anywhere right now.
Absolutely. Agreed. And it's worth noting, last thing I'll say on it is I respected the hell out of him for, toughing out a very tough situation mentally and physically. I really do believe he was knocked unconscious at the end of that second. He made it through the round. He was woken up. He was asked to go back out there, and he did. And he put on his big boy pants.
The bell and he took his loss like a man. So you can give him that.
Exactly. I was definitely impressed by that part, especially for a 22-year-old. That's not easy.
Yeah, it's a good fighting spirit because it was clear that was going to end that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to our last question. This is from Juice with the Fighting With Myself podcast. And here's his question right now.
What's up, Phil? What's up, Fight Geek?
What's up, man?
Posse, y'all could say what's up. Man, I'm just listening to the latest episode, episode 74. Great episode. You guys are killing it. Shout out to Gilbert Burns for coming on. That was awesome. Great interview, Phil. And I'm listening to you guys talking about that 3-round main event between Edmund Shabazian and Derek Brunson, which is obviously going to be recapped in this episode. And it's got me thinking, should the UFC put a clause in their bout agreements that if you have a main card slot, or at least maybe co-main, then it can be elevated to a 5-round main event within a certain period of time. Obviously not maybe the day before, but maybe if they have 2 weeks in advance at least, seems fair. I know it's a little controversial. I know we're getting to, fighter rights in a way, whether or not fighters have a seat at the table for this sort of thing, collective bargaining, but it really, 5-round fights, it's not just the extra 2 rounds. They fight differently in 5-round fights, and it really annoys me that this main event is not 5 rounds. So, get at me. This is Juice from the Fighting With Myself podcast, obviously.
All right, Juice.
Right.
Thank you. Love the question. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Mikey.
I'm with you. I think there should be a clause in at least some of the higher profile fighters' contracts.
100%. 100%.
You may be elevated based on the availability of the main and the co-main. So prepare. Maybe it's not 2 weeks because that's even a little bit of a squeeze. I'd say 30 days out there can be shuffling of the card or something like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, hold on. That wouldn't protect Shabazian versus Brunson. That would have been a 3.
Well, again, we're in trying times here. To be fair, Shabazian, in my opinion, is not a main event fighter yet anyways. I mean, he really doesn't have a large profile. He hasn't beat a ranked fighter. So that was, he really could have been just on the main card last weekend. That didn't have to be a main event. You see what I'm saying?
Well, of course. It was elevated to 1 because the Holly Holm fight dropped out.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know.
But Juice, my personal opinion is that I love Juice's idea. There should 100% be a 5-round clause. And by the way, Chael Sonnen, who I love his show, but he never shuts up, never, about how he wants to get rid of 5-round fights in MMA. And that is the one thing where it's like, Chael, we get it. You're bitter. You lost to Anderson Silva at the end of a 5-round fight. But please, you've got...
transparent to why he hates him.
He's got to get over it. He's got to get over it.
No, he's never getting over that. He was a few seconds away from being the king of the world.
Tell me that's not... Are you going to look at me with a straight face and say that's not the reason that he hates 5-rounders? Of course
it would make all the sense in the world.
Of course that's why. And it's just like, chill, buddy, old pal, get over it. Anyways, Juice, totally agree. Yes, definitely. I love this idea of this 5-round clause for co-mains. I love that idea. Brilliant. Yes.
Yeah. 5-round fighters train to be in 5-round fights, though. So that's kind of where I was going with the main event stuff. Edmund Shabazian is not a 5-round main event fighter yet. So it was kind of hard to ask him to do that anyways.
Okay, but Fight Geek, here's what I don't get. Let's say that you I know it's far-fetched. Let's say you're making your UFC debut. Don't you, at least I would for sure. I would get into the best cardio condition I possibly could. I would train as if I was training for 5 because there's nothing scarier than gassing out in a fight.
Yeah, you would think so, but we see people show up. I wouldn't say a lot, but without cardio to go, maybe they just feel like they're going to get out of there. A guy like Edmund Shabazian, he's been out of there 10 of his 11 fights in the first round, so maybe he just really thought he was going to get out of there, and then when it doesn't go that way, he wasn't equipped to adjust. So again, maybe another learning experience.
Absolutely. Okay, so is that it? Are we all out of questions for this week?
That's it.
All right, Fight Geek, take us away, baby.
All right, guys, as usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. I'm at The Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil the MMA Dude. We're at Split_podcast. It's 4 words, The Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.